They said he left when the sky turned purple, that in-between hour when light forgets itself and the world goes quiet. No chains broken, no screams, just footsteps fading into the fields, and then nothing. The field of Savannah lay under a dying sun, orange bleeding into violet, and violet fading into that eerie blue where shadows begin to whisper. The air was heavy, soaked with the smell of sugar cane and sweat. The day was ending, but for the slaves, time never really ended. It just folded into itself like another endless hour. Samuel had always been different, quiet, too quiet. The kind of man who looked at the horizon as if he saw something no one else could. When others sang Sorrow to Survive, he stayed silent, staring at the twilight sky like it was calling his name. Boy, keep cuttin'. Don't stare into nothing, old Martha had warned him. Twilight brings ghosts, and the ones that ain't ghosts, they worse. But Samuel didn't listen. He kept staring. There was something in that distance, a thin line of fog that rolled in from the marshes every evening, swallowing the far edge of the plantation. Some said it was just the river mist. Others whispered it was the border between the living and the gone, the place where lost souls waited for freedom. That night, everything changed. The overseer, Mr. Harlan, was drunk again, swinging his whip like he was conducting an orchestra of pain. The men cut slower. The air was thick. Samuel dropped his sickle, straightened his back, and for the first time, didn't flinch when the whip cracked. "Pick it up, boy. Pick it up now!" He didn't. He turned his head, calm, almost peaceful, and said softly, I hear my name." No one moved. No one breathed, because everyone had heard it too. A faint voice, distant, floating on the twilight breeze. It said, "Samuel." Not a scream, not an echo, just a whisper that came from nowhere. Or maybe from everywhere. The whip fell from Harlan's hand. Samuel walked forward, slow steps crunching over dry cane stalks, into that violet mist where the field met the fog. His figure blurred, faded, and then vanished. Not a word after that. No body, no footprints. Nothing but silence and the faint hum of something like a hymn played backwards, soft, unsettling, and wet with sorrow. By morning, his name was forbidden. No one spoke it. No one asked. But at twilight, when the fog returned, the field went quiet again. And if you listened closely, you could hear chains rattling softly in rhythm, like footsteps walking in circles. And sometimes, a voice calling, "I'm still here." They say the night after Samuel vanished, even the stars refused to shine. It wasn't darkness, it was absence. Like the world had blinked and forgotten to open its eyes again. The fields of Savannah lay silent. The crickets didn't sing. The river, once loud with frogs, went still, like something beneath it was listening. The slaves whispered while working, heads low, afraid to even glance at the fog. No one said his name, but fear had a name now, and it was Samuel. Old Martha was the first to notice it. While lighting the small candle outside her hut, she heard chains. Not loud, not dragging, but soft, like someone walking barefoot through the grass carrying invisible weight. Ch-ch, clink, ch-ch, clink. She froze. The candle flickered, flame bending toward the field, as if pulled by breath. Then a faint hum, not from the living, not from the world she knew. A low, hollow tune, like someone singing the work song, but without a mouth to form the words. "Ain't nobody out there," she whispered. "Lord, tell me ain't nobody out there." But deep down she knew Samuel had never really left. Overseer Harlan had been acting strange since that day. He hadn't touched the whip. He barely slept. Each night he'd sit by his porch with a bottle in hand, staring at the fog that rolled in. He said nothing, but the men heard him mumbling to himself. Words like, "I didn't mean it," or "He called my name first." By the third night, his eyes were red, hands shaking. He told the plantation owner, "I think that field ain't right anymore." The owner laughed. "You think a runaway boy cursed my land? Boy's probably halfway to Charleston." But Harlan knew what he'd seen. When Samuel vanished, the fog had swallowed him like a mouth closing over a secret. And sometimes when Harlan looked too long into that fog, he saw movement, like something pacing inside it, back and forth, restless, waiting. Down by the river huts, two small children, Ruthie and Eli, started playing by the reeds. They came back pale as ghosts. "Mama," Ruthie said, "there's a man in the water. He was singing your song." Martha froze. What song, baby? The one you sing when you wash clothes. But backwards. When the adults went to check, there was nothing, just the rippling river. But carved in the mud were footprints, bare, wet, and leading away toward the fog. They ended abruptly, as if the man had melted into air. That night, when the slaves gathered for rest, the plantation bell rang 3 times. No one had touched it. It hadn't rung since Samuel's disappearance. The air turned thick. A wind passed through the huts, cold, smelling of iron and burnt sugar. The dogs began barking toward the fields, teeth bared at the mist. Then came the voice, faint, far, like a whisper crawling out from beneath the earth itself. Keep cuttin'. Don't stare. Keep cuttin'. It was Harlan's voice, except Harlan was still on his porch, shaking uncontrollably. Something, or someone, was mocking him. At midnight, Martha heard it again. The same metallic rhythm. Shh, shh, clink. But this time it wasn't one pair of chains. It was hundreds, they sang, rattling in harmony. An entire field full of unseen workers, their invisible sickles slicing air. She stepped outside her hut, clutching her rosary. The fog glowed faintly, silver, almost alive. And there, just beyond the edge of the light, she saw him, Samuel, or what was left of him, not flesh, not ghost, something in between. His eyes were not eyes. They were twilight itself, endless and still. He didn't move his mouth, but she heard his voice in her bones. Tell them, the work ain't done. Then he lifted his hand, and the chain sang louder, echoing through the night, shaking every hut, every heart, until one by one the candles blew out. By dawn, 3 men were missing. The fog lingered longer than usual, thick, unmoving. When it cleared, the soil of the field was wet, not from dew, but from something darker, and carved into the dirt in long, crooked lines, were words only the old could read, free at twilight. They say when you whisper his name at dusk, the air listens, but never forgives. For 3 nights straight, Savannah had no dawn. The fog never lifted. The air was damp, heavy, like the sky itself was holding its breath. Everywhere the silence carried a hum, low, constant, and almost human. The slaves refused to go to the field. Even the overseers stopped cracking the whip. Because every time the lash cut air, a voice answered back, not again. Little Ruthie, the same child who saw the man in the river, woke her mother one night. Mama, she whispered. He talked to me. Martha's heart froze. Who, baby? The man from the fog. He said he's coming back for the others. Which others? The ones who still belong. Martha clutched her child. The words made no sense, but deep down she knew exactly what they meant. The chains hadn't stopped singing because the field wasn't done claiming its due. 2 nights later, Harlan woke to a scream. A sound not of pain but command. He ran outside him and saw fire. Every cotton stalk in the field burned without consuming itself. Flames that didn't move. Smoke that didn't rise. He ran toward it, yelling for help, but the closer he came, the colder it got. His breath fogged, frost gathering on his beard, and through the frozen fire, Samuel stood, barefoot, still, eyes like hollow lanterns. You took what was never yours, he said. Now the land remembers. Harlan stumbled back, the bottle in his hand shattering. The fire blinked out instantly, leaving the field untouched. But when the others came running, they found him on his knees, staring at the dirt, whispering the same line again and again. The field's alive. The field's alive. By the next week, the plantation owner brought a preacher from Charleston, Reverend Alcott. He came with crosses, salt, and scripture. We'll drive this darkness out, he said. He prayed. He sprinkled holy water on the soil. But when he reached the center of the field, the ground moved. Soft, wet, like breathing. And then from beneath the dirt, a hand reached up, blackened, dry, and still bound in rusted chain. The Reverend screamed. The hand tightened around his ankle. He fell. The Bible slipped from his hand, pages flying open, wind roaring. When the slaves ran to help, the Reverend was gone. Only his hat remained, and a single page torn from his book, fluttering with 3 burned words. He walks free. That night, Martha saw something no one could explain. As she looked out across the fog-covered field, she saw shadows moving, dozens of them. Some bent, some limping, some still dragging unseen weights. The fog swirled, forming faint shapes, like bodies walking in slow rhythm. And then came the chant, a deep rhythmic song, low like thunder but clear as prayer. No master, no chain, No morning again. Each time the chorus rose, the fog pulsed with light, silver like moonfire. The song wasn't angry. It was final. Like souls freeing themselves, Martha fell to her knees, tears mixing with dust. She whispered to the air, "Samuel, what do you want?" And for the first time, the voice answered not in sound, but in wind. The fog brushed against her cheek like a hand, and in her mind she heard, not vengeance, remembrance. By now, the entire plantation knew something sacred, or cursed, had awakened. Every night the old wooden gate leading to the field swung open by itself. No matter how tightly they locked it, by dawn it stood ajar. Like the land itself refused to be owned anymore, they nailed it shut. They prayed over it. They even tried burning it. Nothing worked, and one morning, when the overseer checked again, he saw something carved into the wood, with ash. Like handwriting scorched into the grain, he left the gate open for us all. The slaves stopped singing their old work songs. They didn't need them anymore. Instead, they hummed something new, slow, mournful, but full of peace. It wasn't about fear. It was about freedom beyond reach. Even the birds seemed to echo it, the wind carrying it far beyond the plantation, through the marshes, over the town. People in Savannah began to whisper again, "Have you heard the song of the vanished man? The one who walked into the twilight and never turned back?" And at dusk, if you stood in the right spot, where the fog touched the earth, you could hear it too. A deep hum, almost human, saying nothing and everything at once. He wasn't running away, Martha told her child years later. He was walking home, and with that, Samuel of Savannah became legend. A man who vanished not into death but into freedom, leaving behind a land that would never again belong to anyone. The land forgets nothing. Every footprint, every cry, every lie, it keeps them all, buried beneath the roots. The fog came earlier than usual that evening, thick, silver gray, and almost glowing. It slithered across the plantation like a living thing, climbing fences, curling around trees, and swallowing the horizon. Martha stood at her cabin door, holding Ruthie close. There was no sound, not even the chirp of crickets, only the slow groan of the old wooden gate swinging open once again, the same gate Samuel had left unlatched. Inside the manor, the overseer, Mr. Harlan, sat alone at his desk. His hands shook as he poured whiskey into a tin cup, the liquid spilling over the edges. For nights he hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Samuel's face, not angry, but waiting. He opened his logbook, the same one where he kept records of every lash, every name, every death. And then he did something no man had ever done before. He wrote in red ink, "I was wrong." Tears hit the page. He whispered into the dark, "Lord, forgive me." I can still see him walking. Right through me. A sudden knock came at the door. 3 soft taps. He froze. When he turned, the doorknob turned too. Slowly, silently. "Who's there?" he called. No answer. Only the whisper of fog seeping through the cracks, curling around his boots like smoke. Then, a voice, low and clear. "The field remembers." The lantern on his desk flickered once and went out. By midnight, every slave on the plantation was awake, huddled near their cabins. They could hear something, distant footsteps, slow, heavy, and rhythmic. Coming from the field, one said at first, then another, then dozens more. Ruthie clung to her mother, whispering, "Mama, they're coming home." The fog thickened until no one could see more than a few feet ahead. And then the figures appeared. Dozens of them, faint outlines in the mist. Men and women in torn clothes, faces hidden, movements in perfect sync. Walking the same path Samuel once walked. Each one stopped near the gate, then turned toward the manor. Inside, the air grew colder. The mirrors cracked on their own. Windows slammed. Horses screamed from the stables, and in the middle of the hall, the master of the plantation, old Mr. Calloway, stood trembling, clutching his pistol. "Show yourself," he yelled. "I own this land." The fog seeped under the door, swirling around his feet. And from within it, Samuel stepped forward. The same torn shirt, the same calm face, but his eyes burned with pale gold. Neither anger nor mercy, only truth. "No man owns what bleeds," Samuel said softly. Mr. Calloway raised his gun, fired once. The bullet vanished into the mist. The echo never came back. A heartbeat later, the floor beneath him cracked open, the wood splitting like dry earth. He fell, not far, but deep enough that the fog swallowed him whole. The pistol clattered on the floor, still smoking. When it stopped, the plantation fell silent again, and from outside, faintly, came the sound of chains breaking, one by one. Morning came late. When the first light hit the fields, the fog began to lift, curling upward, vanishing into the dawn. But something was different. The soil, once hard and gray, now shimmered dark and rich, like rain had blessed it overnight. The slaves stepped out, cautious but curious. There was no whip crack, no orders, no overseer, only silence, peaceful, endless silence. Martha led Ruthie to the gate. It still stood open, swaying gently. On its wooden post, carved deep by some unseen hand, were words they would never forget. Freedom remembers. By noon, word had spread. The Callaway plantation was abandoned. The master gone, the overseer missing, and no one ever worked that field again. But sometimes, at twilight, travelers passing through Savannah swore they saw shapes in the distance. Men and women walking slowly through the mist, heads high, faces calm, and leading them was a tall man in a torn white shirt, barefoot, leaving no footprints behind. "That's him," they'd whisper. Samuel, the man who walked into the twilight. The legend became a story told around fires, whispered in work songs, passed through generations. Not as a ghost tale, but as a promise. Because some said the fog that rolled through Savannah wasn't a curse. It was a door. A door Samuel opened for every soul who'd ever been chained, and every time the fog returned, people stopped what they were doing. They listened, and in the hush of the wind they heard it, that same calm, steady voice. "Keep walking. They say freedom doesn't come with sound, it comes with silence." But in Savannah, even silence sings. The fog had lifted. The morning light painted the old Callaway plantation in shades of gold and ash. Everything felt lighter, as if the land itself had taken its first breath in 100 years. The cabins were empty now. The field stood untouched, but the air still carried something alive like a heartbeat trapped in the soil, and when the wind moved through the grass, it sang. Old Martha stayed behind when the others left. She said she couldn't go yet. Something about unfinished prayers. Every morning she'd sit by the open gate, the same one Samuel left unlatched, and hum the work song. Only now she didn't sing it for sorrow. She sang it like a hymn. One dawn, Ruthie found her still sitting there, her rosary wrapped around her fingers, eyes closed, lips smiling. She was gone, but peaceful. And beside her, drawn faintly in the dust, were footprints leading into the fog. 2 sets. Years later, when people rebuilt the land, they found strange things buried beneath the soil. Old chains melted into strange, twisted shapes. Iron cuffs bent outward as if broken from the inside. And deep near the heart of the field, a forge, still warm, still glowing faintly red. No one knew how it was burning. No one touched it, but at night those who passed by swore they heard the sound of a hammer striking metal. Slow, rhythmic, endless, clang. Clang! Clang! Like someone was still down there, forging something for the road ahead. They said it was Samuel. Still working, still free, generations passed. The plantation was gone. The town grew. But every 50 years or so, when the fog rolled in heavy, someone would vanish near the old fields. And always, the story was the same. They saw a man in the distance, barefoot, calm, walking along the dirt road at twilight, humming a tune. And when people tried to follow, he turned a corner and disappeared. No footprints. No sound, only a soft wind, carrying that same haunting melody. Keep walking. The locals named him the Twilight Man, but the elders knew better. They whispered, "That's Samuel," still guiding those who ain't found peace yet. On the anniversary of his disappearance, the people of Savannah gathered near the old gate. They lit candles. They sang the freedom songs passed down by their ancestors. And as the last candle flickered, the wind rose. It wasn't violent. It was gentle, warm, familiar, wrapping around each person like a hand on their shoulder. And for a moment, everyone heard it, the faint hum of chains. Turning to bells, then came the voice, not from above, not from the ground, from everywhere. No one stays lost forever. The candles went out. The fog shimmered once, then cleared, revealing the field glowing under moonlight, lush, green, and alive. Years later, Schoolchildren would visit the site. Teachers would tell them, "This is where Samuel of Savannah walked into the twilight." They'd look around, half afraid, half curious. And some nights, when the wind blew just right, they'd swear they heard faint footsteps behind them. A man humming a tune no one could quite remember, and if anyone asked what the song meant, the old folks would smile and say, "It ain't about death. It's about walking free." Because Samuel didn't die that night in the fog. He became the wind itself, a whisper that moves through every heart that refuses to stay chained. And when freedom feels far away, all you have to do is stop, close your eyes, and listen. You'll hear it, soft, steady, eternal, clang. Clang, clang. Keep walking.